Do you want some coffee?
Welcome to the Creative Ticket podcast, brought to you by Pacific Video. I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast has been originally created, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening today. I am Geraldo Rodriguez, Sydney-based actor, writer, and director, and on this podcast I'll talk to artists from all over the world about their craft, their careers, inspirations, and insights. If you are an arts fanatic like myself, make sure to follow and subscribe so you won't miss out on new episodes.
Well, on this episode, I'm going to go through a few things that inspired me throughout 2024 and that I chose to share with you because I think those things might inspire you as well. I'm going to start with the BBC podcast, This Cultural Life. So if you enjoy the Creative Ticket, This Cultural Life is sort of the same thing. So it's an in-depth interview with a creative person, with either a theater director, an actor. They've featured hosts such as Julie Taymor, who is the creator of the Broadway version of The Lion King. They've also had actor Bill Nighy, film editor Thelma Schoonmaker, who edits Martin Scorsese's films, writer Salman Rushdie, and actor Ben Simon McBurney. So that's why it's amazing in my point of view, because they have wonderful guests, people that have had an enormous and successful and impactful career in the creative industry in different capacities. And by listening to the interviews, you can have a little bit of an insight into how they work, into how they create their pieces, into how they started in the creative business, or into how they worked throughout their careers. So it's really interesting, and I find that that's a good inspiration. Another source of inspiration for me in 2024 was the work of the journalist Mehdi Harsan. So Mehdi Harsan is a journalist. I think he's from the UK. He lives in the US. He's worked for different channels, different TV stations, different broadcast stations. He used to work for MSNBC in the US, but I think either he was made redundant or he left the channel, and instead of trying to find work in a different company, he just went full rogue and created his own sort of TV channel. It's just that it's not a TV channel, it's actually a channel on Substack, which is a sort of a social platform for writers, sort of a Twitter, but for writers, for longer text. And why it inspired me, especially because I subscribe to Zeteo, his media channel. It inspired me because it's a different take on the news. So we can always go and check the news, turn on the TV, and we'll hear the news, we'll see people presenting the news, and they will have a perspective. And usually I find that this is either a North American or an European perspective. It's very rare that even news in countries like Brazil, that has its own industry, has its own culture and its own things happening, its own history. Most of the times, the point of view that we get from Brazilian TV news is the European and the North American. And Zeteo shifts that perspective from European and North American to either Asian, African, Middle Eastern, South American perspectives. And I find that that's a very interesting way of looking at things. I'm not just talking about decolonization and bringing perspectives of peoples that were colonized or people that have struggled or the global South in general, but also, and that's what interests me about the tale, is that when you actually read and when you actually listen to the news of such a platform, you start to question your own point of view. And that's a very interesting thing, in my point of view, for artists or for creative people. And that's why I was really inspired by Zeteo throughout 2024, and I recommend the channel to everyone that is interested in switching from the North American and European perspective to a different perspective. The next person I'm going to talk about, and this is a huge inspiration, is the artist Vincent Namatjira. So Vincent Namatjira is an Australian Aboriginal artist, and he's the winner of the Archibald Prize in 2020. For those who don't know, I didn't know that, the Archibald Prize is Australia's most prestigious award for portrait paintings. And he was the first Indigenous Australian artist to win that prize. So he had an exhibition at the National Gallery of Australia, and his exhibition displayed portraits of many Australian personalities, such as Julia Gillard, Kathy Freeman, and Scott Morrison. But it garnered attention because of the attempt by Gina Reinhardt of having her portrait removed from the exhibition. But the work of Vincent Namatjira inspired me, not just because of the controversy around the portrait of Gina Reinhardt, but, and I confess that that's how I came to know his work, but his work inspired me because on his portraits, he has a humor and a depth to the portrait that you can see that the portrait's not a very realistic portrait of people, but it's a portrait that captures the essence of the person that they're displaying, and that's so brilliant and so inspiring, because although you can tell that that's not a realistic photographic portrait, it has all of the elements that can take you into the world of that person that Vincent is portraying. That's really, really brilliant, and I recommend to all of you to take a look at Vincent Namatjira's work. I actually purchased this book. The book is called Albert Namatjira. So Vincent is the great-grandson of Albert Namatjira. And Albert Namatjira was a landscape painter. He was also an Aboriginal Australian. He was the first Aboriginal Australian to be given the title of Citizen of Australia in 1957. Yes, because before, I think 1962, Aboriginal Australians didn't have the same rights as other Australians, not only white, but other Australians in Australia. And by the sheer force of his talent and his work and his struggle, Albert Namatjira and his paintings went worldwide. So he was recognized as a brilliant artist, not only in Australia, but also internationally. He sold his paintings not only in Australia, but also internationally. And Vincent created a book with the history, the story of his great-grandfather. And it is a beautiful book, not only for children, but also for adults. And the book by Vincent Namatjira can be purchased online as well. Well, the next inspiration is Eduardo Ortiz, who is a Chilean photographer. So Eduardo Ortiz is a street photographer. So he goes out on the streets and he takes photographs of people and landscapes and cities and towns and everything. And I came across his work through YouTube. So there was this video where Eduardo was taking photographs on the street, and he was being followed by a YouTuber that wanted to understand how he worked. So Eduardo, in that video, Eduardo walks around the streets of Turkey, not sure exactly the city or the town that he's walking around, that he's walking on, but he explains what he's doing. And for him, I imagine at this point of his career, it's not about the technical aspects anymore, although he shares a little bit of the technical aspects, but it's about finding the layers of different things that might be happening and figuring out what story will come out of that photograph. That's one of the things that inspired me. The other thing is, as a street photographer, you are hustling for a good shot. And you have to walk around in the middle of the crowd and take photographs and come close to people. And you are actually there. You cannot do your work online. You cannot hide behind the camera. You can actually hide behind the camera, but the camera is too small for you to hide behind it. And Eduardo's work is really inspiring because he has to be really brave to actually be able to take good photographs, because he has to come close to people. And he's very honest about it. He doesn't hide the fact that he's taking photos. He chats to people sometimes. He talks to them. And his photos are exactly are much more than you would expect. His photos are full of layers, tell stories, have different colors, different perspectives, and it offers you a very deep insight into the cultures, into the cities, into the people that he takes photographs of. The next thing that really inspired me in 2024 was a play. Yes, it was a play by Tracy Letts called August, Osage County. So it's a play that was written in the US by this scriptwriter. There was a film that was made on top of the play, but was made not inspired. They actually used the play to do a film. Meryl Streep was on that film. It's a brilliant film. And they had the play performed at the Belvoir Street Theatre, which is one of the most traditional theatre companies in Sydney. And I'm going to say everyone that was involved in terms of directing and cast. So it was directed by Eamon Flack, and the cast includes Tamsin Carroll, Pamela Rabe, Cruse, John Howard, Amy Mathews, Bert Labonte, Johnny Nasser, Rohan Nichol, Will O'Mahony, Anna Samson, Greg Stone, Helen Thomson, and Esther Williams. And the cast is absolutely brilliant, and the play is really fantastic. It's a 3-hour play with 2 breaks, so people can go for a drink and can go for some food in the theater itself. And what I liked and what inspired me about this play was not only the script, which is a brilliant script. It's a story of a family that reunites to when the father dies. So this patriarch dies, and all of the family joins the mother to bury the father. And the play portrays the pain and the love and the hardships of a family in Osage County in the US. So, in my point of view, when you're working in a piece of art, either if it's a play or if it's a film or if it's a documentary, if it's a photograph or painting, you choose. You can choose to go all in into that same meaning or you can choose to contradict yourself a little bit. So you show different perspectives of the same piece, of the same work, of the same um, um, work of art that you're working on. And in the play, they were able to integrate the contradictions and also integrate everything that worked together. So the set was a house, because all of the scenes practically take place in a house. But the house had cracks on the walls, which for me meant not only that the structure of the family was falling apart, but also that we as spectators were invited to look through the cracks. And that was itself really interesting, to just sit there, see those actors perform as this horrendous family that is falling apart, and see them walking around and see through the cracks of that story, which was, in my opinion, brilliant. Another inspiration is the actor Kate Box. So Kate Box is an Australian actor. I've seen her perform in multiple TV series, films, and I think the way she changes from character to character with the same integrity, the same sobriety, the same understanding of her vulnerability is absolutely inspiring. So you can watch Kate Box recently in Deadlock, 4 years later, and fucking Adelaide, which was a lovely surprise. So Kate Box is one of my inspirations for 2024. We're in the middle. I have 4 more inspirations to share with you guys. The next one is the documentary Otto by Otto, directed by Gracie Otto. So that's one of those films that, in my opinion, is sort of a miracle. Yes, and why is that? I feel like that film is sort of a miracle because it's a documentary about this actor, this Australian actor called Barry Otto. And the history of Barry Otto is the history of Australian cinema, because Otto has been doing films for many, many, many years and plays for many, many, many years. And not only he contributed with his talent and with his work to the Australian entertainment and arts industry, but his daughters, Gracie and Miranda, they're both artists. And Gracie takes the task of telling her father's story from a perspective of a daughter, but also from a perspective of someone that is an artist herself. And her father's story, because now he is, I think, in his 80s. So he's starting to go through a few health issues and mental health issues. And to portray that vulnerability with such love, with such vulnerability as well, is a miracle. So we as spectators are lucky to see an artist as Barry Otto is from the perspective of someone that is very close to him, and from the perspective of someone that has access to his most deep and private secrets. So that's really inspiring, and that's one of those things that was only possible because Gracie Otto is also a filmmaker. It's a must watch. The next inspiration was the film Don't Expect Too Much from the End of the World by Romanian filmmaker Radu Jude. And the film tells the story of a production assistant that has to go through a few days in the life of a production assistant that has to find the perfect person for a work safety and hazards video. So she has to go through these people that suffered accidents. She has to choose a few people that suffered accidents in the workplace. And she has to help the director choose one. And the actor that plays the production assistant is a Romanian actor called Ilinca Manolace. And she herself, the actor herself, has an online character called Bobița, who is a sort of an Andrew Tate fanatic. And she makes fun of these Andrew Tate fanatics through Bobița, which is also absolutely funny. And the film shows all of the contradictions of our times. The fact that German companies film in Romania because it's cheaper than filming in Germany. The fact that people that suffered accidents have to be in safety videos telling people not to suffer accidents. I cannot tell you much more about the film because I don't want to give you guys any spoilers, because I want you to watch the film. You can watch it on Mubi. But it's very inspiring. And another thing that attracted me to this film was the fact that you feel that it is a good story told in a very interesting way, but it didn't require that much money. And I tell you why I like this. I feel like in the entertainment industry, or in every arts industry, there are sort of two aspects to a film. You can either watch a film as someone that goes to the circus and wants to see someone that is really virtuous, doing something that is really hard to do. That is one way of looking at it. And I feel like Tom Cruise, for instance, when he advertises his movies, he doesn't talk about the story much. When you go to watch Top Gun, he doesn't talk about what's the story of Top Gun. He tells people about the stunts that he did. Of course there is a story, but we want to see the film. Also, there's a story, but we want to see the stunts. We want to see what he was able to do in the airplane. We want to see if the guys were able to jump the bridge, or if he was able to jump the cliff and fall on a parachute, or whatever. We want to see those stunts. I like those types of films, but I like more the stories that we cannot anticipate, or that shows us the stories that show us something that we didn't know we needed to see. And that's why I liked Don't Expect Too Much from The End of the World. The second to last inspiration I'm going to share is the work of S. Devlin. Maybe a few of you are already familiarized with her work. I came across her work on the series Abstract on Netflix, and the series shows many episodes. Each episode shows the work of a designer or of a creative, and S. Devlin was one of the most impactful artists on that show. And she has recently launched a book that tells the story of her work. But not only is it a book, but it's also a sculpture. Yes, you heard it right, because on the book you can open different pages and you will see different types of inspirations. And why do I like S. Devlin's work? I like her work because I feel like she mixes it all up. There are no frontiers for her. There are no barriers for her. Art is painting, is sculpting, is lighting, is designing, is everything. I get a feeling that she just doesn't care. She doesn't care. She absolutely does not care. And I feel like that's really, really inspiring. Because at this day and age, at this time, I'm very inspired by things that get mixed up. I like diversity. I like the mixture of ice cream with pasta, whatever. And I feel like as Devlin, she does that. She gets inspiration from everything. She mixes it all up. It makes sense or it doesn't make sense, but it is spectacular all the way. And last but not least, my inspiration for 2024 was the production company called Watermelon Pictures. The inspiring part about opening or starting a business that focuses on telling stories of a people that is going through what they're going is the fact that they are creating a documentation for the world to understand who are the Palestinians, what they went through, how they see the world, what's happening to them. And I feel like nowadays we have the opportunity to give voice to people that normally wouldn't have a voice. And that's really inspiring. And I feel like that is a way of bringing harmony, of bringing peace into the world. Because I feel like many of the conflicts, of course, there are many geopolitical and power and money issues. Of course, there will always be, there are those issues. But one of the ways for people, and this is a very slow work, unfortunately, but one of the ways for people to become aware and to start talking about things and to start provoking change is to give voice to people that usually don't have a voice. And I feel that's what they're doing. And that's really inspiring to me. So I've shared with you what my main inspirations of 2024 were. I'm really happy for you to listen, for having you listening to The Creative Ticket. In 2025, we're going to have more people on the show. I hope you get inspired, and I hope we'll see each other soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Ticket podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please remember to share this with your friends and family and subscribe so you can stay up to date with new episodes. Feel free to reach out to hello@pacificvideo.com.au for feedback and suggestions. We would love to hear from you. Take care